So now we are only 1 week away from the NFL regular season coming to an end. The playoffs are about to start in the next, week or two. And luckily, as we already know, the Packers secured the #1 seed. And so now, with that being the case, there are some different things the Packers have to figure out and decide, whether they want to play Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, some of those different guys, what they're going to do with Bakhtiari, Jair, all those other guys as well. And so I want to cover that a little bit later in this video. But for the topic of this video, the reason you probably clicked on this video right here. So a few days ago, I think it was about 4 days ago, on December 30th, the Packers came in and signed a new player. Partly, I think, due to the fact that so many Packers players were placed on the COVID reserve list last week. One of them being Amari Rodgers, who has handled a lot of the returning responsibilities, and so he was one of the guys placed onto the COVID reserve list. So one of the guys the Packers did sign last week was David Moore, who spent 2017 to 2020 on the Seahawks. And, when I was making the video on him, when the Packers did sign him, looking at his stats, he did, play a good amount of wide receiver for the Seahawks. But then also another thing that stood out about him was the fact that he did, spend some time returning kicks or punts mainly for the Seahawks, for a couple seasons. And so with Amari Rodgers, going onto the COVID reserve list, it seemed that maybe that was the reason the Packers decided to sign him. And then coming into this game, of course, he did handle the kick return and the punt returns. He didn't really have any kick returns, though. Lots of touchbacks. But when we take a look at his punt returns and basically how good he did, so David Moore basically had the best game of any Packers, special teams returner of the entire season. And if we take a look right here at this little chart here, this is from PFF, from their website. They got lots of great stuff over there. But as you can see right here at the top here, this is the entire season of stats for the Packers returners. And as you can see right now, David Moore, after just one game, is already at the top with the highest grade, a 67.3 grade by PFF. And also looking at that grade, I looked at every single week of the entire season of Packers, returners and their grades for each game. No player the rest of the season got a grade higher than 67.3 in one game. So he had that one, really, really nice return. It was a long of 21 yards, which was the longest punt return for the Packers in the entire season. So to see this guy come in here just out of nowhere, provide a little bit of a spark to this Packers team for this Packers special teams, it was definitely exciting to see. And so hopefully in the future, when the playoffs do come around, or maybe even next week as well, you'd think the Packers may want to rely on this guy instead of Amari Rodgers. Amari Rodgers has been okay at times, but when you look at his stats right here, he has 19 punt returns, 143 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt. David Moore, 3 returns, 33 yards, 11 yards per attempt, mainly coming from that one 21-yard punt return. And so I think the Packers have to sort of ask the question, decide for themselves, coming to the playoffs, do they want to rely on the guy they've used the entire season in Amari Rodgers, or a majority of the season, or do they want to rely on David Moore, this new guy they just brought in, who did provide a spark? And if I was the decision maker, at least at this point, David Moore showed that spark. He had the longest return of the entire season, for punt returners. So I don't see why the Packers shouldn't just throw him in there and see if maybe he can bring some more life there to the special teams, because clearly having a guy who seemingly can do what he did last night can clearly make a big difference in a game when you flip the field position, sort of like he did last night, also with that penalty after he returned it. So good to see the Packers special teams doing something positive, because most of the season it hasn't been super pretty. And still right now, even though the Packers special teams the past few weeks I think has looked a little better, there haven't been, at least that I can think of right now, any massive returns where it's like, oh my gosh, what is going on? Whereas earlier in the season, it was happening consistently. So that seems to be good. But right now, still, according to PFF, the Packers do have the 31st graded special teams in the NFL. So still, overall, not doing great in that area. But Matt LaFleur was talking about, the team overall in the press conference after this Vikings game, and he was saying the Packers played great in all three phases of the game: offense, defense, as well as special teams. So hopefully the Packers can keep this up, continue to put up points like they have been on offense. Hopefully the defense can continue to get turnovers as they have a majority of this season. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith continuing to ball out, and then hopefully this Packers special teams can sort of keep up what they did, this past week. So now moving on to this idea about, should the Packers play Aaron Rodgers this next week? Should the Packers rest any of the other players as well? And I was listening to Aaron Rodgers' press conference as well as Devontae and Matt LaFleur. And Matt LaFleur was saying right after the game, he hadn't really thought that much about, whether he wants to play these guys, because sort of the first moment he was thinking about it. But he was saying that he was thinking, maybe they'll play him a little bit in this game. Maybe they'll play a half. He was just saying from now until, the divisional playoff game, it's about 3 weeks. And so he was saying that is a long time for those guys, not to play. And so at first I was thinking, okay, Aaron Rodgers' toe is injured. I think I said it in yesterday's video. Aaron's toe is injured. Why don't we just let him rest? But at the same time, will they be a little rusty if they, haven't played football an entire, 3 weeks, at least in an actual game? And maybe that could be the case. So maybe it is smart to throw out Aaron Rodgers, throw out the starters maybe for at least the first half, just so, they sort of stay in that rhythm and then, have the entire, of course, bye week after securing that number 1 seed. So I think it's a good question, and I feel like either way could make sense, but it seems, at least from the press conference, that the Packers will likely play them a little bit just because some reporter asked Matt LaFleur, they're like, will you, sort of consult Rodgers and Devontae? And he was basically saying, yes, I will, because, we like to sort of see what they have to say about it, and they'll probably make a decision, to sort of deciding together what's best for the team overall. So based on Aaron Rodgers saying he plans to play and Devontae Adams saying he does as well, I think he has like 21 yards to beat Jordy Nelson's, I think, receiving yards record. So he probably wants to beat that. So it seems that those guys may play in this game. And then also for, all these other Packers players who aren't injured, Bakhtiari, Jair, Za'Darius, Josh Myers, as the main guys. Aaron Rodgers did say he feels like there's a possibility that those guys could come in and play. And so we have heard that a lot this season, though, that, maybe the Packers will play or bring them back at some point, and it's sort of been, we've just been waiting. And hopefully they do come back, but at the same time, too, I've heard some people talk about, like, okay, well, if they do come back, will it sort of throw off the chemistry that's there? Like, for example, on the offensive line, with the guys playing as they have had for a while now, is it going to throw it off to throw Bakhtiari at left tackle? And maybe it could a little bit, but at the same time, he's David Bakhtiari, and if he's, healthy, you'd have to assume having him in there is better than not having him in there. So the Packers will definitely have to figure out what to do with those guys, even if they are ready to come back or if they're not ready to come back. But that is basically everything I wanted to share in this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you haven't subscribed, I put out Packers content pretty much daily. So feel free to subscribe to the channel down below. Drop a like on the video, and here are my social media, Instagram and Twitter. If you haven't followed me over there, feel free to. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.